Hello, hi, I'm Sophie. Um, I'm the founder of Right CFO, which is a firm of fractional CFOs. It's been going for 10 years. We're a group of 9 and growing, and we specialize in helping tech, media, creative, and not-for-profit organizations who are growing and scaling. Me? Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
Ah, perfect. Thanks for reminding me. Hi, yeah. So I'm Harriet Formby. I am a fractional CFO. I founded my own fractional CFO and advisory business, Below the Line Finance, and I support mostly kind of tech, creative, also some kind of different industries. It's quite a breadth really, and the specialism that I kind of focus on really is the founder mindset around finances and how that relationship with money interacts with all of the decision making stuff that goes on with startups.
have to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Andrea L. Richards, and I'm the CEO of Accounts Navigator. We're based in Waltham Abbey, Essex, and I've had my practice for the last 22 years. We've currently got a team of 9, 2 of which are based in India. And we specialize in a virtual finance office system. So we do all accounting services for all our clients, from incorporation all the way up to tax. We specialize in management accounts because I'm actually SEMA qualified, and I have specialist tax accountants in my office that do the tax side of the business. For me, it's really important that all my clients understand their numbers so they're making the right decisions for their business.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And I believe it's now Carl and then Andres, please.
Good morning, all. My name is Carl. I am a fractional CFO. I've been doing this for around 5 years now. Similar to others, quite a range of clients, but more recently, I do seem to be niching down into econ and SaaS businesses, which is really interesting. I've spent quite a few years in econ businesses, so it's good to be able to use that experience. And yeah, a typical day can include anything from looking at strategic plans to getting down into the cash flow forecast. So yeah, loving it.
Thank you very much, Carl. And last but not least, Andres, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andres. I'm a fractional CFO. My background actually is in investment banking, and then I actually founded 2 fintech startups myself before moving into the fractional CFO space. And as a fractional CFO, I primarily focus on the strategic and commercial side of finance. So that's things like strategic planning around growth and profitability, and sometimes those conflict. And on the commercial side, looking at things like pricing and unit economics.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to all 5 of you. You've heard them, people. We have got an absolutely stellar panel with us today. They're only going to be here for the next 47 minutes, 46 now minutes though. So please bear that in mind. For those of you that are tuning in via LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please bear in mind that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there. So if you do want to ask our panel, you need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. There's links there, but if you can't access those links, simply go to our website, startup-to-scaleup.club. Look for today's session, which is Startup Finances Q&A 02. You click join, it's a quick registration. You'll get an email, a link to your email. And Andrea, if we can keep our cameras off, please, to keep this audio only, that would be great. Thank you. So you'll need to click join, register. You'll get a link to your email through which you can then access our Microsoft Teams calls here. For those of you that make it here, like Pauline just has, you type your question in the chat and you type it as early as you can because time will run out. And then as soon as you do that, we then give you the mic and you can ask our panel. If your questions, by the way, today are not on finances, and when I say finances, they can be on anything to do with those numbers, whether it's, I don't know, let's see, your cash flow, your budgeting, profits and loss, payroll, employee benefits, taxation, bookkeeping, VAT, auditing, R&D tax credits, loans, banking, fraud, projections, forecasting templates, and all that jazz. There literally are no wrong questions. But if you'd like to ask us questions on other matters, please save them for the other events we run. So Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month, UK startup law, third Friday of the month, UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. Actually, when you go there, you might also want to join our community of founders and investors and operators on WhatsApp. The best way to do that is to, there's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our screen. Now, whilst we'll, just before we take Pauline's question, Maybe our team here wouldn't mind giving us some do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage finances. So perhaps we can start with Carl, and then we can go to Andrea, Andres, Harriet, and Sophie. So take it away, please, Carl.
Sure. I think the biggest do is log into Xero, get a Xero subscription, and keep it updated. The more frequently you update it, the easier it is to keep on top of your finances. It's not difficult, but if you don't do it, therein lies disaster.
Here, thank you very much, Carl. So I guess the next one was Andrea. What is your one do and one don't, Andrea?
I'm always telling clients that they need to seek an accountant at the very beginning of their journey, rather than at the end when HMRC and Companies House are actually chasing them for figures. So we like to always work with our clients from incorporation and work with them to build their business from the very beginning, so that they get it right. Because what we always find, especially, is that they think incorporation is really simple, and it is, if you know what you're doing, but they always seem to get the share allocations and everything totally incorrect. So when it actually comes to doing the year-end figure stuff, it then becomes a problem. So seek an accountant from the very beginning of your journey, not just when you're ready to file your taxes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I believe the next one was Andres.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what has been said, just in terms of ensuring the quality and accuracy of bookkeeping, because frankly, you can't really do any analysis unless the numbers are correct. But I'll kind of add something different. I'll say that actually, so in terms of the don'ts, don't think of finance as just this back office function. Actually, it can be used as a value driver for your business, and looking for ways to grow and manage risks that are on the horizon. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. And I think the next one, if I'm not mistaken, was it Sophie or no, Harriet? Terribly sorry. Harriet, and then Sophie, please.
So my do is to kind of sit down with somebody that can help you with kind of forecasting and the drivers behind the figures before you sit down with investors, and you go out to have those meetings. Often people come to me after they've had some difficult questions on their figures and they're feeling kind of stressed and under pressure. So getting that kind of support earlier on is a really good idea, to avoid that kind of that happening and feeling stressed about it and not knowing, you know, the answers necessarily. And my don't would be, don't worry if you are feeling, you know, exposed, that you don't understand, you know, some of the terminology or what's required of you. Seek out an accountant or a CFO partner who is able to, you feel comfortable sharing this with, and it's going to be better to be kind of open as much as possible about that, because often I see people kind of ignoring something, maybe ignoring that they needed to register for VAT or that sort of thing, and then getting quite stressed afterwards. So I'd just be sort of, find somebody you can partner with who you can ask questions, or obviously coming along here is great as well. And this is obviously an opportunity to ask those questions that might feel maybe you should know already, but there's no judgment, obviously. So you know, ask away any opportunity you can.
Thank you, Harriet. And I believe the next one, Sophie.
Yeah, I agree with everyone, actually. Great advice. Mine is about cash and cash flow. And I know you've heard it a million times, that people go to business because of cash issues. But I think, I mean, it's worth going on about. So the first thing I would do is just, you know, when you're doing your business plan, have a little cash flow. It's not just a P&L. It's because you don't know when, you know, you have to, if you don't know how to do a cash flow, get someone to help you, or get any of us or some kind of support. I think you know, if you don't have the revenue coming in, you already know not to spend. Where I see things going really wrong, and where the real danger is when you start winning a lot of business, and that's where people tend to run out of cash, and it's deceiving. You think, okay, amazing, you know, I've got this great new client, and then all this money's going to come in, but actually, you know, if you're using, say, freelancers, because it's a brand new client and you haven't taken people on yet, they might have to be paid in a week or two, and your new client might not pay you for 60 days. And there are all these different scenarios that can happen that can really put you at a pinch point. So it's really, really important to go through that and plan ahead of time how to make sure you don't run out of money.
Well, that is some golden advice from all 5 of you, and I really appreciate that. Right, Joe, people, just another reminder, because I can see my phone pinging with messages from LinkedIn and so on. Please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions on our live streams, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. So please join us live here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, so if you're like me, you don't need to spend hours in front of the mirror. And the idea is that you can do that simply by going to our website, startup2scaleup.club, find today's session, Startup Finances Q&A 02, click join. It's a quick registration, and then you'll get a link to your email to join us. We're only going to be here for the next 37 minutes, and the way this will work is by you going to type your question in our in the chat room here, and once you've done that, then you'll be able to join us live. Well, basically, you type the question, and I'll give you the mic to ask the panel. Now, if your questions today are not on finances, then save them for the other events we run, and you can find all of them. Well, there's 6. Mondays, talent, Tuesdays, product and tech, Wednesdays, growth, Thursdays, fundraising, second Friday of the month, UK startup law, and third Friday of the month, as you can see today, UK startup financing and finances, sorry, and you can RSVP to any of them there. Now, let's go on to Pauline, who is one of the co-founders of our startup of the month. Pauline, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, Anton.
Brilliant. Please, a quick introduction, and then fire away with your question, because I think it's one that I'm getting quite often at the moment whenever I go to events or whenever I speak to founders. So take it away, please, Pauline.
Super. Well, I'm Pauline, a co-founder in the company called 36 Bus Productions with my friend Becca from university. And we are working on an app, a relaxation app called Reggae Calm. Now, when we look at figures, numbers, it can start to make us feel a bit stressful. So our app is rather apt, if you like. So my question is, how can AI help us to perfect our cash flow and financial projections? So in fact, picking up on Harriet, could our CFO partner be AI?
Interesting. That is very cool. Thank you very much. Right here. Well, here's what I'm going to do now. Because there's a few of us, which is brilliant, let's keep it to 1 minute each, please, in terms of those questions. And I guess we can do that in the... All right, so we can start with Andrea, Andres, Harriet, Carl, and then Sophie, please. Your 1 minute of glory on AI finance starts now, Andrea.
Okay, so as a business myself, we're trying to implement AI. I've recently just joined a group regarding accountants setting up AI in the business to smooth operations and streamline all our tasks. I'm fairly new to this myself, and yeah, it'd be really interesting actually to hear from the other CFOs on the panel of how they're actually doing that. I've actually joined an accounting group so that I can learn more on this, and so I can implement it within my business to help streamline our own processes. So it'd be really interesting to hear what others have to say on this subject.
Thank you very much for that, Andrea. I guess the next one is Andres, and then Harriet, and then Carl, and then Sophie. Please try to remember your turns. Your 1 minute of glory starts now, Andres.
Great. Well, it is certainly an interesting topic to discuss. I think if you think about AI and what AI can offer, I would separate it into kind of two different elements. One is the automating manual tasks and analysis, and the other is based off of that analysis, or based off of that, once you have all the information you need, what kind of different connections you can make. And I think definitely there's a lot of AI tools to make it the automation of your available information and kind of forecasting it forward. But really the magic happens where people start making connections from that, oh, what if you do this differently? What if you do that, et cetera? And frankly, right now where AI is, I still think that it's probably better to have a CFO that uses AI tools rather than AI as a CFO. Maybe that's kind of self-serving right there. But I think you need to have someone with a bit of skin in the game, and sometimes that skin is just being able to look at that someone in the eye and have those discussions. And I don't know if AI can do that quite yet. Maybe it can in the future, but I'm not sure quite yet.
Thank you very much, Andres. I believe the next one is Harriet, then Carl, then Sophie, please.
So I think in the end, I've got lots of thoughts on this, but in the interest of time, I was going to just focus on kind of the entry level part of, using AI, in the sense of, I would say, yes, it's probably relevant if you're thinking, gosh, I've got to do a cash flow and I'm not quite sure where to start, or if what I've got is any good. It might be worth saying, Chat GPT, talk me through how to, and I haven't tried this prompt yet, so I don't know what you get, but putting a prompt in saying, talk me through how to do a cash flow, and it'd be interesting to see what comes up. And then potentially you could put, if you've got a cash flow, perhaps you could put that into AI, and obviously make sure you've got, you're comfortable with the data you're sharing, etc., and the tool you're using, but to see what it says, and maybe you'll have some prompts of how you can improve it. The bit that I think, potentially you might need the human element for with this is that it might go off on a tangent and do something that wouldn't be, what a human CFO might recommend. So I'm not totally sure what prompts would be, but it'd be very interesting to see if there would be a way of you refining, what you've got in that way. And obviously there's going to be lots more connected and, technically advanced ways of doing that, I think, that would be plugged into accounting software, like Xero and things like that. So yeah, it might be interesting to try that prompt with what you've got and see what comes up.
Thank you very much, Harriet. Carl, and then Sophie, please.
Okay, so in terms of cash flow, I think one of the easiest tools that I've seen out there is an app called Float, and that simply plugs into Xero and produces a 13-week cash flow, but you can also extend it out for the next 12 months if your cash flow extends that long. So that's a really useful tool to use. There are other cash flow forecasting tools available. In terms of AI, I use AI a lot to produce mainly kind of reports, standard operating procedures, some legal documents. But in terms of could it replace a CFO, I tend to agree with the other panelists that having that experience within business over 15, 20, 30 years is invaluable. Whilst AI can certainly guide you along the route, I do think having that experience and someone to talk you through what AI has produced is still required.
Thank you, Carl. Sophie?
Yep. So that's interesting. I haven't heard of Float, so I'm going to check that out. I'm currently on a trial, trying out a software called Fathom, which has been recommended to me, which does use AI to do cash flow and projections and reporting and all kinds of things, and it links into Xero. But does it replace? No, I think you work with, it can never replace. I mean, but what it does do is make you work more efficient. And, if you want to, if you want to buy an hour's time of someone to help you make sure your projections and cash flow are right, you save all that time using AI, and then you use the person to make sure it's actually makes sense and then interpret it. Yeah, it can only, I think it's limited. If you put certain things into AI and creates a cash flow, and if you've got spend coming out of standing order, a standing order or whatever, it'll know when that's going to come out and at what date. But it's not going to know whether you've got a client that's, I don't know, got a credit rating problem, or they might not be able to pay, or there's all these different things that actually just a human will know. So I think it's wonderful to incorporate, but it's dangerous to say, oh, that's the only way I'm going to go. I think it's a combination.
Thank you very much to all 5 of you. So I think the verdict, Pauline, is that AI is a good tool, but you need a numbers girl or guy to use it rather than somebody useless like myself. Does that make sense, Pauline?
Oh, it absolutely does. Ground it in humanity, and I think that's what we're about, people. And I have heard that AI is, it can be a wonderful tool, but it can be subject to what they call hallucinations and go off on a tangent. So, yeah, it makes sense to me to use it as a brilliant tool to create magic, as Andrea said. But, experience has to prevail.
I mean, for me, in general, and especially since I know that my biggest weakness is finances when it comes to business, I do use it, but mainly if I have loads of data that I need to make sense of, and you just kind of put it there and let it crunch. But it does have hallucinations, as it's called, the term, when it arrogantly gives you so many figures and things that actually are not true or factual, but the way it presents them, it's as if God's kind of was giving those numbers out. But it's not too bad for that kind of stuff. I see Andres wants to add something. Go ahead, Andres.
Thanks. Yeah, just that element, that word human that Pauline mentioned, I think is really important, because a business or a ledger will not describe the full nature of a business. A lot of these financial decisions have either inputs or requirements that are from humans or impacts on humans. So there is this human impact element, and even dealing with founders, I find that there's also kind of some emotion attached to certain financial decisions, and speaking with another human, they pick up on that connotations and that kind of hesitancy or the tone. And I think that's where a human really prevails, and ChatGPT is not there quite yet.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that. Pauline, do you have any follow-ups for us?
No, I think that was rather comprehensive and took us to some amazing places. So, no, there's practical things in there that we can use. Thank you very much, panel.
Yeah, thank you very much, and best of luck. Right, we've only got 25 minutes to go, and this is Startup Finances Q&A. We're here to help startups with whatever questions you have in terms of your numbers. The idea, it's quite simple. If you are here on Microsoft Teams, then you type your question in the chat, and that can be on anything to do with startup finances, cash flow, budgeting, profits and loss, payroll, employee benefits, taxation, bookkeeping, VAT, auditing, R&D tax credits, loans, banking, fraud, projections, forecasting, templates, and all that jazz. Basically, hopefully we'll create a situation where you better understand your finances. You kind of start making sense of them somehow. Now, for those of you that are following us via the live streams, unfortunately, we are unable to monitor your questions there, and there's no point in sending me messages or comments. So please bear that in mind. If you want to join us here, and if you've got any questions, simply go to startup-to-scaleup.club, find today's session, which is Startup Finances Q&A 02, click join, quick registration. You'll get a link to your email and you can join us via that. If your questions, however, today are not on finances, please save them for the other events we run: Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising. Second Friday of the month, it's legal. Third Friday of the month, it's finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup-to-scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, join us on WhatsApp as well. There's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our site. Now, rather than going through some specific questions we have received, I would say the majority, or maybe not the majority, but a large chunk of questions is to do with financial modeling, which I'm not even going to attempt because it's all bleeding Greek to me. So perhaps we can have about a minute each, try and focus on the really sort of practical and pragmatic stuff that founders can do. Of course, we know that it's much better if they have the help of somebody like yourself, but in terms of them doing it themselves, what would you say? And also, is there any tools that would be helpful? So yeah, let's try and take a minute each if we can, please. This time, maybe we can start with Harriet, then Carl, then Sophie, then Andrea, then Andres. Let's try and do it in a minute each if we can, please, team. Financial modeling for startups. Harriet?
Okay, so sorry, I didn't quite catch the question. Was it about tips on financial modeling?
Yes, please.
Yes, perfect. So I would say
tools and practical steps, basically. Tools and practical steps that founders can take, hopefully without needing to go to a financial professional like yourselves. But even if they do, what is it that they can do themselves before they get to that point?
Perfect, thank you. So I would say one thing to just really consider with, financial modeling is a lot of it is actually about the methodology that you take. So if you're doing things in really simple terms and you're just sat there with an Excel sheet in front of you, the main thing to do is kind of justify the build up for, so rather than say 5 million, for example, you would break things down to say, these are my assumptions, and kind of map them out through for Excel or whatever. And this means you can always go back to, if you put it down for a couple of months to come back to it, you always know where the numbers came from. So make sure you've got those drivers of the figures that are there, and you can always kind of work back to them. So always make sure that formulas kind of, make sense to you. You keep things. You don't kind of hard code over the top the answers and then wonder how you got those figures, because that could make your whole model completely useless if you kind of open it up and then, they're all just numbers that don't really make sense. So I'd say the first thing to think of is you are justifying your assumptions, and you make sure it makes sense to you, that you can explain it to somebody else as a real, starting point.
Thank you very much for that, Harriet. I believe the next one was Carl, and then Sophie, and then Andrea, and then Andres, please.
Yes, so I'd probably echo much of what Harriet said. I think first, it really depends on how comfortable you are in Excel. If not, then a piece of paper will work. But if you can just start with the sales forecast, and if you can do that month by month, don't as Harriet said, don't start with 5 million. Be realistic. How are you going to grow the business from zero to 5 million. That will take a while. What expenses will you need to incur to do that? So marketing, go-to-market costs, etc. Payroll, do you need a team? Just really think about how you are going to generate that revenue, and then start to think about the timing of receipts, so that pardon me, so that you can start to think about the cash flow. So if you make a sale, is it online? Do you get the cash immediately, or are you going to have to wait 30 days or 60 days? And then on the payment side, the same thing. So if I buy something now, then am I paying up front? Do I have 30 days terms, etc.? So really think about how you are going to grow your business at the various stages and cash payments along that route. And then in terms of tools, Sophie mentioned Fathom earlier. Again, I've not done too much into it, but I believe that Fathom can, with some decent inputs, create this three-way forecast model. So P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow all integrated. So I'll definitely be checking Fathom out, but can't really attest to how good or not it is at the moment, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much, Carl. Sophie, please.
Hi. I think so. I've done a lot of financial modeling, sometimes from scratch, and often I've taken someone else's financial modeling and had to fix it. And I know you said, what are your tips if you have to do it yourself? But my number one tip was get someone who knows what they're doing to do it. You'll save so much time. So that's my first suggestion. In terms of tools, yeah, I mean, I'm still on a trial with Fathom, so I don't know yet if it's any good. For that, I have tried another kind of AI tool for financial modeling, and it was horrendous. And so I have not yet found something that I would trust. I'm still doing it in Excel. But I agree with, have your drivers on, the first page is your assumptions and your drivers, and that could link to your other pages. So, know how much are you expecting to grow every year, know how much you're gonna, or, percentage of revenue you're gonna spend on staff, or what that looks like, all those kind of things, so that it makes sense. And the other tip would just be, and this again comes from seeing people's financial models that they think look great and are about to be presented to investors, and actually, you have to be realistic, because if the purpose of your financial model is to get investment, they will see right through, you're not going to go from 0 to 10 million next year, that kind of thing. So you've got to be, I think Dragon's Den, like you've got to be realistic. And also, if this is for the point of investors, are they going to think about, why would they do this? Or when are they going to get their money back? When is that going to take? How long is that going to take? Think of those kind of things. But even if you want to do it all yourself, at least get someone to look over it before you put it out there in the public.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Andrea, please.
Yeah, I would, people need to determine what their financial model is for. If it is for investment, it's going to be very different pieces of information that you're going to gather for an investor than you are if it's just a financial model for yourself and for you to just grow your business. I always say, cash flow is really important, and it really, people need to understand that, if there's no cash in the business, it's just not going to happen. So when they're doing their budgets and their cash flows, that they need to, underestimate the sales and, exceed figures when it comes to their expenses, and see if they can still make a profit so that their business can move forward. I was with a client yesterday, and she's managed to raise investment for her venture, and she won the People's Choice Award for her venture. But what investors did say to her is that she lacked confidence in discussing her figures, whereas she expects me to do that for her. And that, but so as a business owner, I feel that you need to understand those figures yourself rather than expect your accountant or anyone to do it. So really get a handle of your figures, just like you do see in Dragon's Den. You know, if you don't know your numbers, that they're just not going to invest. So with your financial model, it all depends on where you're going with it. If it's for investors or if it's just for you to build and grow that business, like I said, undersell and with the expenses increase those to make sure you're going to make a profit and make some money in the long run.
Yeah, thank you very much. And last but not least, Andres, and as Andres is answering the question, perhaps the others might want to look at a question that I've just put in the chat that was sent in to us and just start preparing for that, please. Andres?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's been mentioned here, particularly around, trying to understand what the underlying purpose of that particular model is, because that will dictate what it needs to show and what you need to be comfortable with. I think understanding the drivers, or everything has a formula. Even yes, of course, in Excel there's formulas, but just thinking about your revenue or thinking about your costs in a formulaic way is really helpful. Classic example is your revenue, number of products times price, you get your revenue. Some other revenue models are quite, have many different drivers that ultimately feed into revenue. But understanding that actually helps you, particularly around the fundraising, when investors ask around the assumptions, you can say, well, the price that I'm charging is in line with competitors, or this is my plan to get this number of products out the door in year one. So you understanding that formula allows you to structure your responses to investors, and it makes you a lot more credible.
Thank you very much, Andres. I'm going to read the next question that was sent in to us. But in the meantime, if I can ask our brilliant panelists, on LinkedIn, I've tagged you onto the live stream. If you can think of any place where people can find a template, and I know this won't be the final version, but a template that will help them prepare things so that then when they have a better idea, they can come to somebody like you and say, look, this is what I've done myself. And I just now need somebody like yourself to have a look at it. If you can think of anything, I would be grateful if you can put that on LinkedIn where I've tagged you on the live stream. If not, don't worry about it. But now we've got 11 minutes to go. So maybe let's try and take about a minute each. Let's hope this question makes sense. So she sent, we need help implementing CHAPS for high value supplier payments. The startup she has is a green tech startup importing materials for renewable energy solutions. It's a husband and wife startup. They're based in Portsmouth. The challenge she has is that the company regularly makes high value international payments to suppliers, but the high cost of CHAPS transactions is a concern. Our situation is that revenue generating seed funded with growing procurement needs. So again, she's put the question, as a green tech startup making high value international supplier payments, how can we implement CHAPS effectively to manage costs and ensure timely transactions? What UK specific strategies, such as evaluating alternatives like SEPA or SWIFT for cross-border payments and negotiating transaction fee waivers, with banks, should we consider to balance operational efficiency and financial sustainability? Oh, Christ almighty, I'm already overwhelmed just reading it. Let's see, maybe this time we can start with, let's go with Sophie, then Andres, then Harriet, then Carl, and last but not least, Andrea. 1 minute each, please, team, because we've only got about 9 minutes to go.
Hi, yeah. So CHAPS, paying by CHAPS is very expensive, and the reason it's expensive is because it guarantees the same day payment. I haven't used chaps in years, and I've made, I've made this on behalf of clients, made sizable international transactions, and I always use Swift. And sometimes there's a depends coming from everyone. Sometimes there's always a charge, but it's not going to be as much as chaps. I would avoid using chaps, and part of if you're doing it because you need same day payment, then that's an organizational kind of, you need to organize what has to be paid when, and not be last minute about it, and just kind of organize yourself. If that's the reason. If the reason is just because that's what you think you should do and you don't know the alternatives, then definitely just use Swift. That's my suggestion.
Use Swift. Thank you very much, Andres.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit outside my wheelhouse, as I more focus on the strategic and commercial side rather than the payment. But I
that's okay. If you want, we can move on to the next one.
I'll skip. I'll pass the mic.
That's cool. That is totally fine. I'd rather people do that than we try and make things up. I believe next would be Harriet, please.
Yeah, similar. I'm not, totally into the international payment stuff either. But one comment I would make is it just a chaps charge problem, or is it also about managing currency? And it might be that want to look at the chap side of things, but you might want to look at what you can do regarding, I'm assuming what you're saying is that you're paying in potentially other currencies, and perhaps you haven't got the best deal on the FX rates. So I'm not saying use these ones, but it might be worth looking at something like Wise or Revolut, or a bank. And it might not, I don't know quite what the scale of your size of payments are, but it might be something that is actually, there's ways of better managing that FX movement to minimize costs. So it could be something to do with that as well that you're finding.
That makes sense. I believe the next one was Carl, wasn't it? Carl?
Yeah, so I've done plenty of large international payments over the years, but I don't recall ever using chaps. I think chaps might just be a UK thing. And if we're making large payments, you can speak to the bank. They will advise on this. Swift is very common, but if you're using your bank, they do not tend to use the best rates. So if you can hook up with a FX broker, and there are many, if you look on LinkedIn, they will get you better rates than the bank. They will, of course, charge their margin, but overall it should be a lot cheaper and more efficient to do it that way. Sophie says you just need to be organized. Making last minute payments overseas is expensive. If you can be a little bit more organized, you can do it a lot cheaper, a hell of a lot cheaper.
That's interesting. I haven't thought of the Forex payments part. Interesting point. Andrea, please.
Yeah, as per the last two speakers, I have clients who are multi-currency, and they definitely don't pay in chaps. They do use Wise, they do use Revolut, and they do use FX brokers, and that's the way forward when you're doing international payments. I would chaps is a UK thing. I definitely wouldn't do that. And that is definitely using the multi-currency banks such as Revolut. I'm not sure about Monzo Business, but Revolut, I know a lot of my clients use that for multi-currency transactions. And yeah, that's the way forward. Wise are great as well.
I hear. Thank you very much. Just to get this right, did I skip Sophie? Sophie, did I skip you?
Nope. No, I think I was first.
You went perfect. Okay, so we've got everyone covering this. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. There's quite a few other questions, but we've only got 5 minutes to go. And what I'd love to do with this is perhaps get some parting words in terms of some things that you think founders need to bear in mind as they start when it comes to their finances, especially if there's any practical tips on whether it's tools or I don't know, some kind of models or templates or whatever it is, or things to bear in mind, whatever it may be, that would be great. So we'll just use that in the same order that you joined. So we'll start with Sophie, Carl, Harriet, Andres, and Andrea, please.
I think someone mentioned this earlier, but I think, you know, keeping your accounting software, your invoicing and everything up to date and staying organized is really, really important. Not, you know, yeah, not just doing that. And I've seen this many times, especially with earlier startups, you know, where people just, okay, it's the VAT return time. I'm going to do all my bookkeeping for the last 3 months. Don't do that. That's my lasting comment.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Yes, Carl.
Yeah, so I think keeping an eye on cash flow is absolutely crucial. So keep your zero up to date, plug in float, and it's just there on a plate for you. And a key tip that I always suggest is putting cash aside in a separate bank account for taxes. So for your VAT bill, for your corporation tax bill, don't be caught short at the end of the year with a massive bill that you can't afford to pay.
A very good point. I believe the next one would be Harriet, please.
I'd say up front, you know, and we don't always know where we're going, I suppose, on what scale things are, but kind of having a vision about where you're going will help you. I think someone did mention earlier that, you know, things like the level of you know, forecasting and financial planning will depend on if you're, you know, going to be going to investors or you're going to be borrowing money, and there's different approaches for different things. So I think having a view of which direction you are going in and who your stakeholders are is really important to then work out what your priorities are in terms of the finances.
Thank you very much for that, Harriet. Andres, please.
Believe it or not, Harriet totally stole my one. I think just having that strategic or having a firm grasp of strategy in your business of where you want to be in, let's say, even 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, you know, whatever time horizon you want, and what you want your business to look like at that time is really helpful for your accountant or your you know, CFO to help you guide, because they can keep you true to that vision, because there are going to be many financial decisions that come up, and sometimes actually you'll be deciding between 2 really great, exciting decisions, and you have no idea the cost or the cost implications or the revenue potential of either of those decisions. Then having someone that understands your vision across the table from you can really help you tease out which is the right way to go.
Thank you very much, Andres. And last but not least, Andrea, please.
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, I truly believe in for founders that they need to get someone who's financially competent in their business from the very beginning, so that they understand their numbers, so that they're making all those right decisions from the very beginning. It's easy to lose track, so definitely keep things up to date on a regular basis. Don't just wait until somebody starts chasing you for money that you're actually going to start dealing with it. So for me, it's just really important to just know where you're going by understanding those numbers. The numbers will drive your business forward.
Thank you very much. It seems that the wisdom is not to be like me, or like I used to be anyway. I take in a Tesco bag each year and go into my accountant full of all sorts of things in it. Rightio. Well, it's now 1 o'clock. It has been an amazing session, and I really appreciate everyone for tuning in, whether you did this via YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, or for those of you that were here on Microsoft Teams. I'm, of course, grateful to our panelists that shared their time and wisdom with us for free. If anybody wants to reach out to them, please feel free to do so via LinkedIn. Remember, they're doing this for free so that they don't have to do other stuff for free. And a couple of quick reminders. One, our Startup of the Month campaign, competition. The deadline is this evening if you want to enter, and that's for STEM or STEM-enabled UK incorporated companies in the last 3 years. The idea is quite simple. We're doing this to give you exposure to our community of founders, investors, and operators who might hopefully end up becoming your collaborators or perhaps clients or investors. We've had over 270,000 people that have reached us, joined us in the last 4 years, and none of that would have been possible without the panelists we have. So please show them your love. On the other hand, if you win, by the way, you will be featured in all our events in April. My second announcement is we run 6 regular sessions, and it's much better for you if you join us interactively on Microsoft Teams rather than the live streams. And the best way to do that is go to our website, startup2scaleup.club, and RSVP to your preferred Q&A. And also actually join our community on WhatsApp. There's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our website. Our sessions, by the way, are Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month, it's UK startup law. And as you can see today, third Friday of the month, it's UK startup finances. And as far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both difficult, but also quite exciting. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter. Otherwise, have an amazing weekend ahead of you. And hopefully you'll join us on Monday for Startup Talent Q&A. Again, thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.